My high school crush publicly rejected me in front of the entire school. We just got married. When the pastor said I could kiss my husband, the first thing I thought about was a cafeteria. My name is Odette. I am 29 years old, and this is the most embarrassing, most painful, most ultimately beautiful story I own. His name is Felix. We went to the same high school in a small town where everyone knew everything before it finished happening. He was 17, tall, quietly funny in the way that made you feel chosen when he aimed it at you. I was 16 and completely, catastrophically in love with him, in the manner only a 16-year-old can be. Total, consuming, absolutely lacking in self-preservation. I did what no person with functional self-preservation instincts would do. I asked him out, in the cafeteria, during lunch, in front of approximately 200 students who had nothing more interesting to watch. I had written a note, an actual handwritten note, which in retrospect was the least of my errors, and I delivered it in person because I had convinced myself that sincerity deserved a live audience. I tapped his shoulder. He turned around. I handed him the note and stood there while he read it with his friends watching, and the entire cafeteria doing that thing where conversations slowly stop and attention quietly pivots. He said no, not cruelly. Felix was never cruel, but clearly, and with the specific discomfort of a 17-year-old boy who did not know what to do with the enormity of what I had handed him in public. The walk back to my table was the longest of my life. I transferred my lunch period the following Monday. I became an expert in hallway route optimization. I spent the remaining 2 years of high school being perfectly fine in the practiced way of someone who has decided that perfectly fine is enough. We lost contact completely after graduation. I went one direction, he went another, and I spent my 20s occasionally remembering that cafeteria the way you remember a scar. Not with pain exactly, but with the particular awareness of where something once hurt. I was 26 when I ran into him at a mutual friend's birthday. He was standing near the window with a drink, older, the quiet humor still present but settled now, grown into something warmer. He recognized me immediately. I prepared, somewhere in my chest, the old familiar perfectly fine. Instead, he walked over and said, "I owe you an apology that is about 10 years overdue." I told him he didn't, that we were 17, that these things happened. He said, "I know, I still thought about it for years." We talked for 4 hours that night, not about the cafeteria specifically, but about everything around it, who we had been, who we had become, the decade of living that separated that table from this window. He was different in all the ways that mattered, and exactly the same in the ways that had made me love him at 16. We got coffee the following week, then dinner, then all the ordinary, extraordinary accumulation of two people deciding slowly, and then suddenly, that this is the person. 14 months later, he proposed in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning, no audience, just the two of us and the coffee going cold on the counter. I said yes before he finished the sentence. At the wedding, during his vows, he talked about the cafeteria. He had the whole room. He told it with the self-deprecating honesty of a man who had made peace with his worst moment and wanted to name it out loud. He said he had been too young and too frightened to understand what it meant when someone handed you their heart that openly. He said he had spent 10 years without knowing he was waiting to deserve it. He said, "You were brave enough for both of us at 16. I'm spending the rest of my life being brave enough for you now." I was not composed. I want to be clear about that. There was nothing graceful about how I cried. Somewhere in the reception hall, my mother was telling someone the cafeteria story she had heard 17 times. My bridesmaids were already planning how to tell it at every dinner party for the next decade. Felix found me during the first dance and put his forehead against mine and said quietly, "Just for us. Longest walk of your life, huh?" I laughed so hard I nearly ruined the song. It was the best moment of the best day of my life. 16-year-old Odette, walking back to her table with her whole face burning, had absolutely no idea. She deserved to know. She was braver than she understood. Sometimes the story that embarrasses you most becomes the story that defines you best. Let it. The right person will love you more for it.